No comes.
Tansei, hello, my name is Jessica Sanderson-Berry. I'm Nehiao Squeo from Chaka Sapesamban, means reflection in the water from Treaty 6 territory. Half my other family is from Musqueam, and I currently reside here in Edmonton, Alberta. I'm a full-time artist for J-Shine Designs, and I use a lot of elements from the land in my work, like moose hides, elk hides, caribou hair. My late grandmother, Clara Sanderson, she attended Gordon's Indian Residential School in Saskatchewan, and she also attended day school as well. To be quite honest, I didn't learn that about Indian Residential School until my probably about early 20s. It was never spoken about in our family kin. My grandmother, and I'm really close with her. She was like my mom, Clara. She's never spoke about the treatment about those schools. It was kind of felt like it was, she was trying to, looking back now, I feel like she's trying to protect me from all those traumas. You know, and so when I found out about it in probably 2004 or 5. That's when she went to her first adjudication to talk about her story, and my late auntie Michelle was there to support her. So that was then when my eyes opened and I started learning about the history of these schools. And then after that, I just started learning more about my grandmother's truth and how that affected her throughout the years. And it did. It affected her in so many different ways, and it's just kind of rippled down towards us. And it affects me. It affects me to this day. You know, loss of language, disconnection to land. So my late grandmother, I went to her second adjudication in 2013 or 14. And in that room, I sat with her, and I was her moral support. And she was speaking her truth about what had happened in that school. And so that's when I actually learned a lot of graphic things that had happened to her, a lot of traumatic things. And it made me understand about like why she is the way she is. And, you know, like the things that she struggled with. And I kind of like was getting an understanding of how this impacted her. But for me, in 2014, 15, I applied to go back to school to the U of A through the Faculty of Native Studies. And when I applied to that school, I took my first Cree class, university Cree class. And so that's when I started to learn the language more and more so, because it wasn't spoken at home, right? My grandmother never ever spoke Cree to me. And I just felt like I always wondered why. And now looking back, like I know it's because she was shamed to speak her language, and it was never spoken or wasn't taught to me. So when I attended university and with Dorothy Thunder, our Cree teacher, I would bring home my little package there, and I would bring it home to my grandma. I would go visit my grandma at her house, and we'd sit there and I'd be like, hey, how do you say this word properly? Because no one in my family speaks Cree. And so it's just reclaiming that and relearning it, not relearning, but learning the language is how I'm reclaiming my identity as Nehiao Squeo, you know, as a Cree woman. I think that's important. Language is important to me, and to be able to, that last year I had with my grandmother, because she passed away in 2015, she was really proud of me, you know, like she was an Indian residential school survivor, so she had a $3,000 credit, and she gifted that to me to go back to school. It's hard because she suffered a lot at Indian residential school, and to be able to give just that little gift to me, because she's like, oh, I'm not going back to school, like I'm too old, like because she was in her late 60s, but she sent me back to school, and that's where I learned the language. And I just felt that was so powerful. I was able to sit with her and talk Cree with her, well, at least try to. I think like in terms of loss of connection to land, I just think about how Indian residential school, ripped my grandmother from her home community, put her on a bus, couple hours, went south to Gordon's Indian residential school, and displaced her. That took a lot from her. She would talk about the different things that she would do with her mom and her dad, and she would be out on the land all the time. And, putting that disruption, especially at the beginning of the school year, at the end of August, beginning of September. And that's a really important time for families, because that's when you start harvesting, with your family. And when you disrupt that, it takes a lot from your connection to land, and ripping away the normalcy that she did have in her life, and then sending her to residential school, displaced her for many years. And when I grew up here in Edmonton, she found the land in the way that she knew how, utilizing her backyard, going picking apples right here in the city in her backyard. And I feel like she taught us in those little tiny ways. They were the tiniest ways, but those teachings, bring me to today where I'm using my own backyard in the way that I know how. And so the land is all around us. I feel like you're building those good relations. You're building Wakotowin, Miwachitowin. And it's like, now that I have realized that, the land is around me, it's like, I've always had that connection to land. And it was kind of like a revitalization of me that, the land's around us and we're all interconnected somehow. When I think of revitalization of Cree cultural practices, it brings me to what I do today, which is tanning home tanned hides. This practice was disrupted. My late great-great-grandmother and her son, which is my grandfather, George, they used to tan hides together. And so it was stopped. It was stopped at a point where it wasn't passed down to my biological mother or myself, and that transmission of knowledge was disrupted. So for me, learning this first how to tan hides in 2017 with the Faculty of Native Studies, along with the Faculty of Law, there was about 14 students of us who went to Sousa Creek to learn how to tan hides and what that meant, and looking at natural laws and looking at Wakotowin and Miwachitowin, which is building good relations with one another. That really opened up my eyes, and it made I had this deep-rooted connection when I was helping tanning that hide. It was just a phenomenal experience. It was an emotional experience. It was a labor of love. And since then, my connection to tanning hides with Sousa Creek and their members there, something within me has always been drawn to doing that work. When I left my job a month later, I attended my second hide camp just around this area in Edmonton here. I just learned from my cookum that, my grandfather and my great-grandmother tanned hides. They tanned hides in their back on the land where they were in Pigeon Lake. And, they did this work, and it really struck me. It really struck me because in a way that it just felt like I'm here where I'm supposed to be. It's, like I said, in 2017, I felt that connection. It's my connection to my ancestors, and it just clicked. They're always with me. As a Cree person, like tanning hides, there's so many processes within that, from tanning a hide from start to finish, that I feel like you need to be there. You need to be able to work with the moose and touch the moose and touch the hide. You have to be able to see it with your eyes and feel it. And, and anytime that I'm working on a moose, or any hide for that matter, you feel that spirit's around. In high school, I attended a Miskwachi Academy, which is Edmonton Public School. Within that school curriculum, they had a kind of like a fashions class. So signed up for fashions, and my first day in there, I've met late Hilda Saddleback. She's from Muskwachees. So she's the one who laid the foundation of what beadwork was, what loom work was, how to sew star blankets. So that's when it kind of opened my eyes, and it felt like it just awakened my spirit. Learning those techniques, and I beaded my first earrings, and I was just like so grateful to learn those techniques because beadwork wasn't taught to me when I was younger. Be proud of who you are and where you come from, and be proud of your traditions and keep them alive. It's all about that transmission of knowledge, and to being able to pass that down to the future generations. So my hopes is this work, this traditional practice will be taught for, thousands of years to come.